Gang, 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 what's poppin', man? Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Everything 414 Podcast. I know that, of course. I need to know if my air conditioning too loud in the back. If it is, or if it ain't, I don't think it matters. I think y'all can hear me well, but this video right here, man, is about fairies. And I know y'all looking like, damn, how in the hell he come up with this fairy tale? The reason I did so is because looking at all these beings that's being shown to us, looking at all these aliens and UAPs and plasmoids, things coming out the ocean, it only made me wanted to just, dive into vampires, werewolves, fairies. Now, when I looked up the word fairy, it's almost like looking up the word magic. When you look up the word magic, you can easily see, right, when you look on Google, that it's two words, M-A-G-I-C and then M-A-G-I-C-K. And it's the same thing with fairy. When you look up fairy on Google, say F-A-I-R-Y, F-A-I-R-Y fairy. That way of spelling fairy is the whimsical fairy, the stage fairy, the school fairy, the public fairy. And then it's another way to spell it, which is F-A-E-R-Y. And that's supposed to be the more mythological, more folklore, more universal spelling of fairy. You understand what I'm saying? And ain't even different. So I also did my studies. I looked up mythology, where did the word come from indigenously? And it said, and I also wanted to know, was it like, did mythology and folklore mean fake and real? Well, no. Mythology meant that these were definitely not fake stories, but they were super real stories and stories that you should not ever take as fake, take as, a disbelieved fairy tale or like some type of book. They said these stories became fake to us in modern day because the Western studies of them, the Western culture conditioning, you feel me, and adaptation to it. They started saying these stories was fake. So many people don't believe into it. So many people don't look into it. And then they automatically knew once we believed that it was fake, we was never going to be trained, you feel me, to keep our eyesight on it or be trained to view for these things in our reality. You understand what I'm saying? But I got a video that I want y'all to check out. We're going to dive in this video together and just understand it, man.
The word itself was doing practical work, not scientific classification. What mattered was their behavior. When folklorists later began comparing traditions across Britain and Ireland, they noticed a loose pattern. Some fairies moved in groups. They were in courts, the hosts, the processions that ride at night, dance in rings and live under hills ruled by kings and queens. Others were solitary. These were tricksters, predators and tempters, the ones you meet alone on the road, by the river or at the edge of the forest. And then there were the household fairies, the brownies, the hobgoblins, who attached themselves to farms and families, helping them when respected, but becoming dangerous when offended. These categories overlap and none of them are safe, but they help explain why fairy stories feel so chaotic. People are not describing one kind of being, they're describing repeating patterns of threat, help, and interference.
75% of consumers prefer to connect with their favorite brands through SMS. The Slick Text Inbox enables you and your team to collaborate on customer care and manage conversations.
The tiny winged fairy fits poorly into the older world. Wings appear rarely in British and English folklore, and when they do, they're not central. The image of fairies as glowing, delicate creatures belongs to a much later period when fairy belief was being reshaped into entertainment rather than lived experience. What survives from older traditions is not appearance, but attitude. Fairies are not good or evil. They are fixed in their nature and bound to their rules. They punish disrespect. They reward courtesy. They twist language, enforce their bargains literally, and treat human assumptions as irrelevant. This is why folk warnings about fairies almost come down to the same advice. Never assume they think like you do. Never make a deal unless you're prepared to lose more than you gain. Now that we've looked at how modern fairy images differ from folkloric roots, it's time to travel backward into the older beliefs and see how they developed region by region. To do that, we begin in England. When we look at fairy lore in England, the first thing to understand is the word fairy itself arrived quite late. It doesn't appear in English until the end of the Middle Ages, around the 14th century. But long before the word existed, England already had beings that later became strongly associated with fairies. These were the elves, or in Old English, the elf or yelf, depending on the form. Elves appear in Anglo-Saxon sources, but the references are often brief, scattered, or contradictory. Because of that, scholars have tried to...
And low-key, I always wonder, like, what or when did, this theory of they not existing or they don't, live anymore, like, where did that come from? Who made that up? Who started that rumor out there? Like, look, these fairies ain't real, UFOs ain't real, aliens ain't real, vampires ain't real, werewolves ain't real. Like, who the fuck put that out there? Was it the elites, as they call them? Was it the people with all the money and the power in the world? I want to know, really do, because it never made sense to me. Like, come on now, if y'all know this stuff real, why the hell would y'all trying to hide it? And who give y'all the right to hide it? Talking about, well, they won't be able to handle it. Fuck y'all.
Interpret them by comparing them with similar figures in Norse and Germanic traditions, where the lore is more complete. In the Icelandic sagas, for example, elves are described as human-shaped supernatural beings. They're distinct from giants, ogres, and dwarves, and they're often divided into light elves and dark elves. The light elves are described as beautiful and radiant, while the dark elves are more mysterious and dwell underground. However, in England, the surviving evidence suggests that elves were viewed in a much more negative way than their Norse counterparts. They were often blamed for illness, misfortune, and mysterious pains in both humans and livestock. Medical texts from the ancient Saxon period include charms meant to cure ailments caused by elf shot, which was believed to be a kind of invisible attack. Names from the period like Alfred, Alfwine contain the elf element, but it's not always clear if these names were meant in a positive sense or a form of protection. Even in literature, elves were not always benevolent. In the poem Beowulf, elves are listed among the monstrous descendants of Cain, along ogres, giants, and other supernatural beings. This suggests that in early English belief, elves were not gentle or helpful, but part of a darker, more dangerous world. Interestingly, elves were also sometimes linked to beauty and seduction. In a few medieval manuscripts, scribes translating Latin texts used the Old English word elf to explain the word nymph, suggesting that elves could be imagined as attractive female spirits, rather than purely malevolent beings. But overall, the Anglo-Saxon picture is inconsistent. It's not clear whether elves were always supernatural or not, or sometimes seen as a mysterious form of human. The tradition is scattered, and we simply don't have enough surviving material to form a complete picture. It's only after the Norman conquest that we start to see clear.
Even though he said they ain't got enough evidence to form a scientific, evidential picture, it's still believable a little bit to me, because somebody had to come up with these stories from somewhere, right? Time been existing so long, and across the world, across countries and states, stuff like that, people have seen things that we haven't seen. You know what I'm saying? Definitely not on this side of America. There's a lot of people on the other side of the globe that has seen other things that we have not seen yet. It's people held in China and Korea that seen things we haven't seen yet. So, I wouldn't be shocked, and it wouldn't be far-fetched if these guys seen things of that nature, like vampires and werewolves and shit of that nature. That shit would be, not far-fetched at all. But to know that these stories exist and know that somebody out here has seen these stories, and you can tell that these stories exist because every one of these stories lies in the movies that we watch right now today. I can't lie to you. Like, every one of these stories is being depicted in movies. So that's crazy.
Fairy-like images appearing regularly in written English sources. Between the 12th and 13th centuries, several writers recorded stories of encounters between humans and magical beings that resembled later fairies. These appear in texts by Gerald of Wales, Walter Map, William of Newburgh, Ralph of Coggeshall, and Gervase of Tilbury. Although these writers often approach the stories as curiosities rather than as full folklore, they give us valuable glimpses into early fairy belief. Certainly, motifs reoccur again and again in these tales. These beings are often described as long-lived and somewhat superior to humans. They inhabit either underworld realms or parallel worlds. They can bless or curse humans, sometimes reward hospitality, and they occasionally steal children. They're frequently associated with the colour green, which becomes an enduring trait in British fairy lore. One memorable example appears in Gerald of Wales's account of a younger boy named Elidor. According to the story, Elidor fled his strict tutor and hid under a riverbank. While there, he encountered two tiny men dressed in green, who led him through a dark tunnel into an underground world. This world had meadows, rivers, forests, but no sunlight, moon or stars. Everything was dim but pleasant. The people there were small, beautiful and well proportioned. They fed on milk-based dishes and had no interest in meat, fishing or human religious practices. They had their own language which the boy learned. Eventually, Elidor made the mistake of stealing a golden ball from the underground people and running home with it. They chased him, retrieved the ball, and after that, every entrance to the world vanished. Elidor grew up, became a priest, and could still remember the language in his old age, although the memory brought him to tears. The story contains many features that become standard: the underground realm, the beautiful but strange beings, the taboo against stealing from them, and the disappearance of the entryway, and the sense that contact with their world brings both wonder and loss. Another reoccurring figure in medieval fairy tales is the supernatural woman encountered in secluded places. These beings often appear dancing or singing at night, especially around lakes or forests. A man might attempt to court or capture one, and the story usually ends one of two ways. Either she escapes back to her world, or she transforms into something monstrous at a crucial moment, leaving the man terrified or even driven mad. Gerald records,
Like bait. You feel me? That sounds like they baiting you in. They want you to, come capture them. They want you to be aware of them and then interact with them. And the moment you interact with them, definitely a man, they turn into a fucking hairy monster in your hand. Like, what type of shit? These stories, I don't think these stories is fake at all. These was some culture at that time storyline. This is what some culture around the world lived at some time in life. You understand what I'm saying? It was a time, it had to have been a time we was not alive. It had to have been a time we was not in the area nor near they surround us to even witness what they witnessed. But just to know these stories like this, gang, and some of the stuff that these people drew on the walls, you feel me, and the stories they telling their ancestors, and they passing them down to modern day. You guys to believe something from these stories. I don't even give a fuck if it changed 100 times. Usually that's what it do, because it got to go generation to generation. But you got to believe some of these stories, gang. Like, literally, you got to.
such case in which a man embraces a beautiful woman only for her to turn into a hairy, terrifying creature in his arms. Stories like this blur the line between fairies, demons, and shapeshifters, and they reveal the uncertainty medieval people felt about supernatural encounters.
Bitrix 24 is a free CRM system that allows you to achieve 5 times more than an.
While folklore preserved the fairy beliefs through oral tradition, literature began shaping its own version of fairies, especially through the Romance tradition of medieval France. These romances introduced human-like fairies with great beauty, magical power, and an affinity for lovers and kings. A key figure in this development is Oberon, a dwarf king who appears in the 13th century French tale Huon de Bordeaux. He is tiny, magical, wealthy, and powerful, and his name becomes strongly associated with fairy royalty. These literary fairies were not always small. In fact, most were human-sized. But the romances did formalize several ideas that later became a standard. Fairies lived in parallel worlds, they interacted with humans, sometimes romantically, and they operated under mysterious rules that humans did not fully understand. Over the next few centuries, especially by the late medieval period, England developed the concept of the fairy kingdom. Fairies were imagined as having courts, rulers, and hierarchical societies. The wife of Bath in Chaucer's Canterbury Tales mentions that Britain was once filled with fairies and led by a fairy queen. By the 15th century, the term fairy had largely replaced elf in English writing. Fairy queens, kings, and courts became a popular motive. The association of fairies with dancing, music, and mischief grew stronger, and fairies became favourite subjects for poets and playwrights. Fairy belief reached a new level of popularity in Elizabethan and Jacobean eras. These were the decades when fairies became playful, mischievous, and theatrical in public imagination. Shakespeare played a huge role in this. His play, A Midsummer Night's Dream, gave us an iconic fairy court ruled by
I can't lie, man. Shakespeare played a huge role in a lot of shit. His fucking name was in the Bible too. You feel me? 46 lines up and 46 lines down. Shakespeare. It's crazy, but you know, the fairy part, y'all can believe, man. Like I said, because you know, ain't nothing not unreal. You feel me? It has been proven right now today that everything around the world and everything around us, unseen and seen, is real. And I think honestly, that's something they've been new. You know what I'm saying? If we've been had AI all these years, I think honestly they've been new that. They've been new everything that they showed us in these movies real, all the powers, all the magic, all the small people, the giant people. I think it's all real, gang. I think they just been, you know, trying to keep us from being aware of it, you know, consciously. They've been trying to steer us the other way consciously, so don't nobody be freaked out, I guess. I don't know why they think that, but like I said, if they would have introduced it to us in the nicest, fashionable, formal way, then shit, everybody probably would have been acceptable of whatever it is they're gonna show us.
Ron and Tatiana, surrounded by attendants and tricksters. Here we find Puck, or Robin Goodfellow, the playful prankster who delights in confusing mortals. This is the only period where fairies became more involved in moral tales. They rewarded good behaviour, punished wrongdoers, and received offerings from households who hoped to stay in their good side. A belief in household fairies, helpful but sensitive to insult, becomes common. Interestingly, Queen Elizabeth I herself was sometimes depicted in fairy imagery as a fairy queen surrounded by ethereal attendants. Edmund Spenser's poem, The Fairy Queen, takes this even further, blending national myth, Arthurian lore, Christian allegory, and fairy symbolism in an effort to praise Elizabeth. By the time the Victorians arrived, fairies had become beloved figures of children's stories, illustrations, and theatrical productions. This period finally gave the world a tiny winged fairy that dominates modern imagination. But beneath all the Victorian sweetness, the older, stranger fairy traditions never truly disappeared. They remained tucked inside the folklore of each region, waiting for someone to collect them. The 19th century saw an explosion in folklore collecting, greatly inspired by the Brothers Grimm. Their work encouraged scholars across Europe to record local legends before they completely vanished. In England, this produced a wealth of regional lore rather than a single national collection. Each county had its own fairy types, names, and variations, and they did not always match one another. This shift from oral tradition to written record preserved many of the fairy beliefs that might otherwise have been lost. It also revealed how widespread and varied fairy lore truly was. Now that we've explored the historical development of fairies in England, the next part of this section will look at the specific English fairy types, their behaviours and the stories attached to them. These vary wildly from region to region. Even neighbouring counties might have similar creatures but with different names, habits, or personalities. There is no unified English fairy tradition. It's more of a patch.
You know, he said one thing that made a lot of sense. A lot of things that, you know, that we all talk about and discuss or believe in has different names. Definitely when it comes to countries and, you know, generations, like God, you know, some call him Buddha, some call him Yahweh, some call him Allah. You feel me? Like it's so many things that is the same and relatable, but we all got different names and different forms or methods of ways of describing these things. You understand what I'm saying? But in all actuality, it all means the same. It's crazy.
But there are some traits that show up again and again in English stories. Many fairies wear green, many dance in rings or circles, Many borrow tools, food, milk, or household items, usually without permission. And many dislike salt or iron. One early and consistent feature is the Faery ring. These are circles found in fields, often marked by mushrooms or patches of unusually lush or unusually pale grass. Today we know these rings form from fungal growth patterns, but in folklore they were almost explained as the result of fairy dancing. And stepping into one was never recommended. This is where trouble began. You could also encounter fairies around ancient monuments. Prehistoric sites in England, from barrows to standing stones, were often considered fairy places. The fairies were said to inhabit them or guard them, and wandering near these places at night was a known risk. It's a belief that survives strongly in Ireland as well. To explore all of these elements more clearly, I want to look at a few specific English fairy beings that represent the breadth of the tradition. The first is one of the most recognizable English fairy types, the pixie. Pixies, or in older form piskies, pigsies, or piskies, are found mainly in West Country, especially Devon, Cornwall, and Somerset. They share some traits with other English fairies, but form a very distinct tradition of their own. Descriptions do vary. Some say pixies have pointed ears, upturned noses, and red hair. Some say they look like small people wearing green. Others say they resemble normal humans, but are unmistakable once you see them up close. Some tales describe them as tiny, others as simply shorter than humans. This inconsistency is a hallmark of the pixie lore. Pixies are known for their mischievous nature. Their favorite pastime is leading travelers astray, especially at night or on moorlands. If someone becomes disoriented, wandering in circles, unable to find their way home, they're said to be pixie-led. One of the traditional remedies is to turn your coat inside out. Another is to carry bread or a cross made of rowan or willow. They're closely associated with ancient burial mounds or natural hollows in the landscape known as pixie holes or pisky crows. These are structures that are entrances into their underground dwellings. Pixies also create their own distinctive fairy rings by riding horses in circles at night. According to folklore, if you find a horse with its mane tangled or its sides foaming for no clear reason, pixies may have borrowed it for a midnight ride. And if you step into one of these rings, you may see the pixies dancing, but stepping in with both feet is said to trap you entirely.
Whoa. Nina just
Belief in some parts of Cornwall that pixies are the sole.
I just came across this other video of another podcaster, and she's speaking about these things, right? She's speaking a lot about these things, and I'm gonna dive into it. And I was like, wow, because at the end of the day, if you got so many people talking about these things, and they got so much knowledge like this about these things, gang, something gotta be up with the story. I ain't watched this one, and this is the horrible podcast. I wanted to watch it. I am actually going to watch it because I really want to know about them. You feel me? And all of them said dark tale, fairies that are evil. They always talking about these evil, right? Which is crazy about part. At the end of the day, I feel like, okay, what's this her? No, it was a different chick. Let me see. This is the video we was just watching. Let's dive into this one, though. I ain't really watched this.
and I saw like this person really weird, and then they went back and they read the message and they went, oh shit. because they hadn't seen that message beforehand.
Prior to setting this up,
Yes.
had
That one part called me.
Space, that was the idea.
Gotcha.
The interesting thing was, many people did find that turned up in their dream, but skeptics will say, well, that's the power of suggestion. You're in this group chat with 1,000 people and you, Celeste, said butterfly wings. Then people dreamed about butterfly wings. But there was one person in there who hadn't seen that message. And they came to log their dream the next day. And they said, oh yeah, I had this dream. I was in the mall and I saw like this person wearing butterfly wings, because they hadn't seen that message beforehand.
Prior to setting this up,
Yes.
had you seen other people in this location?
Yeah. So this is an interesting thing about the mall.
How does that work?
thing.
Is it an actual mall when you're there and it's like
Yeah, there's people.
30, 100 people there?
But not always. It's interesting. There seem to be like two malls or two versions of the mall that I've heard. Some people get the kind of like, I don't know if you ever watched Stranger Things, but the Starlight Mall and Stranger Things.
Yeah.
So they're very like 80s coded, pinks, blues, neons. And that's often the mall that's very populated. There's a bunch of other people in there. You're going to run into other folk. Maybe they're dream characters. Maybe they're other dreamers. We don't know. And that was kind of the purpose of the experiment. But then there's a second version of the mall that is much more Silent Hill adjacent, backrooms-esque, creepy, abandoned.
I don't want to go to that mall.
That mall's attached to Toilet World, and you really don't want to go there.
We got to get into that
Toilet World. It's not good.
We'll talk about that after.
Have you ever been to Toilet World?
No. What the fuck is Toilet World?
Are you sure?
I mean, you talking about physically going to the toilet or?
So have you ever, let me ask you this. Have you never in your life had a dream where you're like trying to find a bathroom or you're in a bathroom and all of the toilets in the bathroom are disgusting?
Never.
It's a bad time. Many people have. That's Toilet World.
What if you have like a fear of nasty toilets?
So that's probably going to increase your likelihood of dreaming about Toilet World, I would argue.
Yeah.
But I think my theory on Toilet World, I don't know why we're calling it Toilet World. It's not really a world of toilets, but that's just what the internet's done. But the gross toilets thing, my mom gets those dreams a lot. I've definitely had those dreams. Most of the people I know of at some point had a weird toilet dream. I think it's because while we're asleep, sometimes we need to pee, right?
Right.
And if you're really in a deep sleep state and you're in REM and you're dreaming, your body does not want you to piss yourself. So your body is going to give you a dream where you're like, I need bathroom and I'm trying to find it, but I'm not going to use this one and piss my bed because all the toilets are disgusting.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the reason that Toilet World happens, personally. But it's
so
recurring.
Crazy.
I ain't never had a Toilet World dream, gang. I don't even know what the fuck that is, but I mean, carry on. I'm trying to get to the part where she gets to talking about these goddamn fairies, right? Okay. Let me see. The CIA dream experiment. Let me see what this is about, y'all. Let's. Oh, yeah.
Work is the thing. I mean, because the dream thing too is connected to the CIA.
Let's talk about that. How would you know this?
Well, Aski, I'm not in the CIA. That was another accusation. Somebody said that I was a CIA psyop.
I mean, you wouldn't tell us even if you were.
No, I also feel like as a non-American citizen, the likelihood of me being a CIA psyop is low.
Low, not impossible.
But not zero.
Not impossible.
Yeah, so the CIA, especially during the sort of period of time roughly between the 50s and like the early 90s, ran several different experiments to see whether people could do things like remote view or astral project. There's a fantastic book by John Ronson called Men Who Stare at Goats. They made it into a movie as well, but the book, in my opinion, is superior because I'm in love with John Ronson and I think he's amazing. But he's like a little old English man. Like, it's funny that I say that because he's like, John Ronson's not a sex symbol, but he's like my intellectual sex symbol. But anyway, okay. John Ronson wrote Men Who Stare at Goats. And it's a whole book about the CIA's psychic experiments because they were trying to train soldiers not only how to remote view, so be able to psychically see in their mind's eye enemy operative spaces and things like that. They were also trying to train them how to explode goats with their minds.
Explode?
Yeah.
How successful were they?
Seemingly not very.
That
we know of.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Us, right?
But this is the thing. Everybody will say, oh, these CIA mind control programs, which are, that's all declassified stuff. It's documented. We know they did it. But everybody will say, well, that stopped in like the late 80s and they're not doing it anymore. And it's not Stranger Things style. They're training like psychic super soldiers. But I was recently...
I think there's a little truth in all the movies and TV shows.
Well, this is the thing. I was recently on a podcast with my dear friend Ed Calderon, he's a former Tijuana cop, and he like fought the cartels in Tijuana. Really cool guy, and he has a lot of intelligence information because he's really connected in those worlds, And when we were on the podcast talking, we were talking about this kind of stuff, and he said, well, it's still happening, right? I said, well, no, I didn't know that for sure, but I knew it,
right, Yep.
So yeah, there's still, the government's still got all their...
Hey, you better believe it's still happening, goddammit. They ain't stopped it just because they told us they stopped it. That shit's still going on right now to this day. Yeah. It's more so they made sure don't nobody know about it this time. And I mean, be honest, that's what you supposed to do if you're doing a secret type of study or a secret test, or if y'all doing anything secretive, you finna be doing it, and you're gonna make sure that this time don't nobody know, ain't nobody got no idea, ain't nobody, you know what I'm saying, thinking about it or even got a clue. And the best way to do that is just to keep them thrown off, and that's what they've been doing to us. They kept us thrown off for years, gang, for even trying to study or pay attention to fairy psychic powers, remote viewing, anything. They tell you it ain't real, and once they tell you that, you don't even do your little second studies or homework no more. You stop looking. Well, some, you know what I'm saying? But then again, there's some smart motherfuckers out there who keep looking, who research, and they still be finding out information. You feel me? So,
if it's in the psychic Ouija pots.
He's talking about what specifically? The astral projecting or the exploding things with the mind?
Potentially both. But I mean, definitely like the astral projection, the remote viewing, because there was evidence that the CIA turned up in these projects. Project Stargate is the big one. MK Ultra, obviously, people talk about. I think a lot of people think MK Ultra is not real, but it was. And if you look at the declassified information, they're telling us that these things were somewhat successful.
Yeah.
And then they kind of want us to believe that they just shut the whole shit down and went, never mind.
That's
sweep it under the rug.
Every study they did, they was fucking successful in. You better believe they was. The CIA ain't paying billions of dollars just to not be successful. This is the army we talking about. These the secret governments. They're not going to pay millions and millions of dollars to not be successful. My nigga, every study they use, from brain power, moving shit with their brain, blowing up the goats with their mind, teleportation with their mind, remote viewing, they were successful. And then what they did was they shut it down to make the public think, look, it's not real. That way we don't start trying it. That way we don't start doing it and studying it. You understand what I'm saying? And then like right now, they tell you everything is, oh, you don't supposed to do this, you don't supposed to do that. Gang, I think they be lying about a lot of shit right now. Like for real, they tell you so much shit you don't supposed to do. You know that's bad doing that. You know that's not right doing that. You know that look bad. Like shut the fuck up. Who is we to say? Cause y'all be doing some of the same shit. Y'all eating babies and shit, man. Y'all on Epstein Island. Y'all fucking the kids and shit. Like, gang, then y'all turn around and be like, hey, look, that ain't supposed to take place. But you got Donald Trump over there. You got, what's that nigga name? The other president, Bill Clinton, him and his wife. Like, what the fuck is really going on? I mean, thinking you niggas doing shit and y'all don't want nobody else to be involved in what y'all doing. Now, I don't know about the island shit with the killing and the raping them kids, but with the powers and teleportation and UFO flying and y'all using your mind to move things, you using your mind to blow up animals and shit, lift animals in the air and move them across the room, that shit we want part of. I gave us all these AI bots. These motherfuckers, the AI bots supposed to take over the humans, right? They supposed to take our jobs and shit like that, all types of shit, right? Why in the fuck y'all ain't give us the powers first? Give us the psychic powers and abilities, make us go invisible and shit. I want to be able to go invisible on your ass. You feel me? So I can walk in your house and eat all the chicken wings or whatever the fuck you got in that motherfucker. I just want to be able to use that shit and show you I can do it. You know what I'm saying?
Not doing that anymore. But people will say that Mall World is connected to that because there's this theory. So there's a theory that all of the people who are dreaming about Mall World are also people who were formerly in gifted and talented programs in school. So the gifted and talented programs, often referred to as the GATE program, right? Ran in a lot of American schools, probably still does. I didn't go to school in America, so this does not apply to me. But I was in Australian versions of that. I was in like gifted and talented extension programs. And a lot of weird stuff went on in these programs. They didn't just like...
What you mean?
So a lot of people remember doing hearing tests, which headphones were put on our heads and weird little tones were played.
I remember this.
See?
I remember this.
Were you in gifted and talented?
I must have been because I remember this.
See?
I didn't know it was that though.
Well, why aren't you in Toilet World? That's my question.
I did get the invite, but I just don't know how to do that stuff. I ain't figured it out yet.
So the hearing test, pink drink. So a little pink, like couple pink stuff that we were supposed to drink that people remember having. And again, like a lot of people like, well, that was just mouthwash. But was it?
Oh my goodness.
A lot of kids remember being taken off campus to like weird locations.
Hold on.
I don't remember that one.
I wasn't taken off campus.
That's good. I wasn't either, that I can recall.
But you knew students that were taken off campus?
A lot of people on TikTok are talking about it.
But where are they talking about where they were taken? Do they remember?
A lot of it is fuzzy memory stuff where they're like, I'm not really sure where we went. I was, in 8th grade and my memories are really foggy. A lot of people who were in the GATE program, and they do remember that, and they have worksheets and they can prove it. My friend Tara Rule on TikTok is one of those people.
She knows for a fact that she was...
Well, she has her worksheets and stuff. So she knows she was in this program. She remembers a lot of what happened. But a lot of people are only just recovering the detailed memories since it started to become a topic of discussion, which is kind of interesting.
We talk about Stranger Things, but like they're taking kids and experimenting.
The Duffer Brothers literally drew inspiration from Project Stargate and MK Ultra. Like they read the declassified documents and went, let's make a TV show about this.
They put this shit right in our faces.
Yeah.
And we just think it's a TV show.
Yeah. The thing is, you have to ask yourself, and I know I'm the lady who is in the vampire cult, and I know how people feel about that. So let me preface what I'm about to say with a disclaimer. But it really benefits certain governing bodies and capitalist interests if we all believe all this shit is crazy. Like if you believe that UFOs and magic and witchcraft and sorcery and the occult, if you think all of that is bananas and not real, that's of great benefit to certain people with a whole lot of power. The CIA declassifies things on purpose so that we can kind of be like, well, that's really silly. The CIA, that seems like nonsense.
I think they put it in our face because they know a lot of us are just going to be like, no way.
Yeah. The GATE theory is that Mall World is in and of itself implanted in the heads of children who were in this GATE program, because GATE was like a CIA training program, essentially, or a screening program.
Specifically the kids that were taken off campus?
Yeah. And that Mall World got planted in our brains as a kind of holding pen so that we didn't get too powerful.
So you was taken off campus?
I don't remember that personally, but I was in Australia. It was a bit, we're more chill there.
This whole lucid dreaming thing. Can dreams function as a method for spirit contact?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Because in the dream, you are in a liminal space, right? And you know what I mean when I say liminal, but just in case anyone watching doesn't, the liminal space is the intermediate interstitial space that's not one thing or another, it's transitory. So you can have physical liminal spaces and you can have theoretical and psychological liminal spaces. The dream is a liminal space. You're not dead. You're not awake. Your body is to some degree paralyzed and your mind is still conscious on some level.
And I always ask this question, gang, and I'm gonna ask this question to y'all before I end this. Like she said, in a dream, that's a liminal state. In a dream, who are you? In your dream, when you had dreams, are you the person that you are when you woke? Like your government name, whoever you are right now, whoever your name is, whatever they call you in your family, at your job, at your school, at your kicking in place at the bar, is you that same person when you go to sleep in your dream? What is your name in your dream? An even better question, have any one of you guys ever been called by your name in your dream? Have you? Have anybody ever said your name in your dream, literally? I mean, not on the outside, when somebody trying to wake you up, and then you hear that voice in your head, like, damn, I heard somebody calling me. And then it was real. That's why. But think about it. Have you ever heard somebody call your name in your dream? Think about that. And on that note, I'm going to end this, man. If y'all got any questions, if y'all got any ideas, comments, you want to leave them in my comment section, you feel me? Do so. I will touch back down on this topic because this is a good one. You feel me? I'm interested in all this type of shit. I love it because the things that we can't see is just as real as the things that we do see. And they tell you that in the Bible. The things that we can't see is just as real as the things we do see. So you better make sure that you're paying attention and you are very aware of the things that you don't see because they are real as shit. And they right there in your face. I love y'all.